The incident took place on a humid Friday morning in late August, during one of the busiest travel weekends of the year. It was the kind of day when airports became pressure cookers, tensions high, lines long, and patience thin. But even with the usual chaos of delayed flights and crying toddlers, nothing could have prepared the terminal crowd for what was about to unfold at Gate 36B. It wasn't the weather, or a bomb threat, or even a missed connection that would leave jaws on the floor. It was what one airport security guard did to a single man, and how the truth unraveled in front of hundreds of stunned passengers. What happened at the airport that morning would not only go viral within hours, but trigger a wave of internal investigations, media firestorms, and public outcry that rocked the entire aviation industry. Because the man they humiliated in plain sight turned out to be married to someone with the power to shut the whole place down. It started like a scene you've probably witnessed yourself. A black man, traveling alone, minding his business. Late 40s, dressed in sleek travel wear, a quiet confidence about him. He had one carry-on, a passport, and a first-class boarding pass. The kind of traveler no one should have had a problem with. And yet, from the moment he stepped through the TSA checkpoint, something changed in the air. His name was Malik. Tall, clean-cut brown skin with a calm demeanor that didn't seem to matter to the man watching him from across the terminal. That man was Gerald, a middle-aged, stocky-built security guard with short graying hair and a wrinkled face. His eyes narrowed the moment Malik walked in, as if he'd been waiting for someone like him all morning. Gerald didn't stop the elderly white couple fumbling through their bags. He didn't question the teenage boys horsing around near the Starbucks line. But when Malik approached the Delta Sky Lounge to verify early boarding for first class, Gerald stepped in like a hawk. No greeting. No, "Can I help you?" Just a gruff, "Let me see your ID and boarding pass again." Malik, unbothered but clearly confused, handed both over. Gerald squinted like he was deciphering a code, then asked, "How'd you get this ticket?" The tone was instantly hostile, drenched in suspicion. Malik raised an eyebrow. "I bought it." A pause. "Is there a problem?" But Gerald didn't answer. Instead, he motioned to another guard and whispered something. Within moments, Malik was being pulled aside. Backpack opened, shoes off again, subjected to a second round of aggressive screening right there in front of travelers who stopped and stared. Some whispered, others recorded. What stood out wasn't just the excessive search, it was that nothing Malik said seemed to matter. When he asked why he was being searched again, Gerald muttered something about random checks, though no one else was being stopped. When Malik pointed out the oddity of being flagged twice despite clearing TSA, Gerald snapped, "You people always have something to hide." That's when things shifted. Malik, who had remained composed, stared at Gerald in disbelief. Then he calmly said, "You might want to watch what you're saying. I think you're making a mistake." Gerald scoffed. "Yeah? You gonna sue me or something?" Meanwhile, at Gate 36B, the VIP boarding lane was being prepared. Staff whispered into radios, checking the arrival status of one specific passenger. Not a celebrity, not a senator, but someone with far more influence than either. The flight crew had been alerted that the CEO of Horizon Atlantic Airlines was en route to board early for an urgent international business summit. Her identity hadn't been publicly announced for security reasons, but her arrival was imminent. Back at the checkpoint, Malik stood silently as Gerald continued searching his bag and tossing out items with unnecessary aggression. Passengers were now openly filming. Gerald, red-faced, seemed unaware or maybe too far gone in his own authority trip to care. Then came the moment that unraveled everything. A sleek black car pulled up to the private drop-off zone just outside the terminal. The door opened. Out stepped a glamorous yet serious black woman in her mid-40s with deep brown skin, high cheekbones, and piercing dark eyes. She wore an elegant brown tailored long coat over a black blouse and black fitted slacks, paired with expensive high heels. Oversized sunglasses shielded her expression, but the way she walked, head high, every step precise, turned heads. Her name was Lena. She wasn't just the CEO of Horizon Atlantic Airlines, she was also Malik's wife. The silence in the lounge snapped like glass when Lena walked into the terminal. Her eyes scanned until they locked onto the scene unfolding near the checkpoint. She said nothing at first, just approached slowly, like a storm cloud about to burst. Gerald didn't even notice her until she stood 3 feet behind him. Then came her voice, calm, sharp, deadly. "Is there a reason you're detaining my husband in public without cause?" Gerald turned around, still holding Malik's laptop in one hand. He blinked. "Excuse me, who are you?" The moment she removed her sunglasses, everything froze. TSA agents, who had seen her face in quarterly security briefings, began whispering. One agent backed away entirely. Gerald, still oblivious, asked again, "Ma'am, this is a private matter. You'll need to—" But Lena cut him off. "This private matter is being live-streamed by at least 6 people right now. You've conducted an unauthorized secondary search without supervisor clearance, and you've made derogatory remarks to a ticketed first-class passenger. That passenger happens to be my husband. My name is Lena Duval. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Horizon Atlantic Airlines. And as of 10 minutes ago, I was preparing to sign a multi-million-dollar partnership agreement with this airport. That deal is now suspended pending a full legal review." Gerald's mouth dropped open. Passengers around them gasped. One TSA supervisor finally stepped in, asking Lena if they could speak in private, but she refused. "We'll talk when your cameras are reviewed. For now, get your employee away from my husband." Gerald, pale now, stammered something about protocols. Malik simply picked up his bag, looked him in the eye, and said nothing. There was no need. The moment had already gone viral. Someone uploaded the full footage with the caption, "Security guard harasses black man at airport. Didn't know his wife owned the skies." By the time Lena and Malik boarded, news crews were on their way to the terminal. But what no one knew yet, not even Gerald, was that this wasn't the first time it had happened. Not even close. Lena had been quietly documenting dozens of similar racial profiling complaints tied to the same airport over the past year. Malik's public harassment was the final straw. What followed over the next 48 hours was pure chaos. Gerald was placed on leave. TSA issued a formal apology. But Lena wasn't satisfied with apologies. She wanted systemic change. Behind closed doors, she launched a legal investigation, hired civil rights attorneys, and issued subpoenas for internal misconduct records. And while the internet was still celebrating Gerald's downfall, Lena and Malik were preparing for something far more explosive. Because buried in those internal reports Lena was now reading was a sealed file marked Priority Incident, Red Level. A file that mentioned another black traveler who'd mysteriously gone missing from the same terminal 4 months earlier. Security footage? Gone. Logs? Erased. And the last person listed on duty that night? Gerald. The storm didn't wait to hit. It came crashing just 36 hours after Lena Duval's confrontation with airport security guard Gerald. What the world had assumed was a clear-cut case of racial profiling quickly exploded into something darker, something deeper. Because the sealed file Lena had unearthed, a file tied to a missing black traveler whose name had been scrubbed from airport records, wasn't just a forgotten document. It was a breadcrumb. And Lena, the CEO of one of the country's largest airlines, wasn't about to let that trail go cold. She'd faced her share of corporate corruption, PR disasters, and silent boardroom betrayals. But this wasn't a press conference or shareholder meeting. This was personal. It was war. Malik knew something had shifted when he woke up the next morning and found Lena already dressed, her laptop open, headphones in, her face lit only by the screen. She wasn't looking at headlines or press releases. She was reviewing terminal surveillance blueprints, timestamp inconsistencies, and employment logs she had subpoenaed under executive pressure. She didn't speak as he entered the room, just pointed to a blurry photo frozen on screen. "That's him," she said. "The man who disappeared. His name was Travis Bell, 27, software engineer from North Carolina. He never made it to his gate. That was 4 months ago. Look who was on shift." Malik stared at the image. Same terminal, same gate, same security guard, Gerald. By noon that day, Lena had a full legal team working under NDAs. Investigators combed through employee logs and confidential HR files, piecing together a quiet but disturbing pattern. Gerald had been placed on discretionary rotation multiple times over the past 2 years for incidents of elevated concern. One file even mentioned an altercation involving a passenger being escorted off premises under suspicious conditions, only for that passenger to never board any flight or return home. What was more unsettling? In each case, the passenger had been a young black man, different cities, different stories, but always the same location. Gate 36B, same guard, same missing footage. Malik sat through the first round of interviews silently, taking in every word, every report. He wasn't a detective or a lawyer, but he knew patterns. And this wasn't coincidence. The dots connected too cleanly. Lena's legal counsel traced the network deeper. Gerald wasn't acting alone. Financial records showed large wire transfers made to an offshore account under an LLC tied to an unregistered third-party contractor listed only as Aegis 3. The company name didn't exist in any legitimate security database, but it showed up in one alarming place: a private vendor form signed by the airport's assistant director 2 years ago. Lena's mind raced as she dug. Her hands shook not with fear, but with fury. This wasn't racial profiling by one bad guard. This was a cover-up, and it had a body count. Within days, Lena went dark publicly but operated like a ghost behind the scenes. No more press statements, no Twitter activity. Only her most trusted employees knew she had returned to the airport, not to fly, but to meet with federal agents she had privately summoned. She brought them everything, all of it. The redacted files, the money trail, the sealed footage from Gate 36B that suddenly had its missing pieces restored by a tech expert on her payroll. What those restored frames showed chilled everyone in the room. Travis Bell had indeed entered the terminal. He had cleared TSA, but before he ever reached his gate, he was intercepted by Gerald and another unidentified figure in plain clothes. They spoke for 2 minutes. Then Travis followed them through a door marked "Staff Only." He was never seen again. When Lena paused the footage, the room was silent. The federal agent leading the briefing asked quietly, "Can we trust your source for the restored video?" Lena didn't hesitate. "That source is my head of IT security. He built the encryption protocol half the airlines in this country use. Yes, we can trust him." They did. That same afternoon, warrants were filed, not just for Gerald, but for the airport's assistant director and several contractors listed under the Aegis 3 banner. But Gerald had already vanished. His house abandoned, his bank account empty, his phone dead. It was Malik who found the break in the case that turned everything. While Lena worked the legal side, Malik began interviewing families of the other missing travelers. He met with a woman named Simone, whose brother vanished at the same gate. She said something that stuck with him. "They kept asking me what he was carrying, like he had something they wanted, but all he had was a laptop and his prototype." Malik's ears perked up. "Prototype?" Simone nodded. "He was designing data encryption software, high level. Military grade," he said. That was the piece. That was the why. Malik returned to Lena with the theory. These men weren't just profiled, they were targeted. Brilliant, ambitious black men with designs, code, patents, intellectual property worth millions. Their work didn't vanish with them. It reappeared under different names, different faces. White CEOs, Silicon Valley tech summits. It was theft, disguised as racial harassment. Lena didn't sleep after that. She mobilized her last and most powerful weapon, media. She leaked pieces of the story to an old journalist friend, a woman who had once taken down an entire pharmaceutical empire with one headline. The story dropped like a bomb. Missing black tech visionaries tied to airport security ring. Evidence of corporate theft emerges. The public was outraged. Civil rights groups, senators, protesters, everyone demanded accountability. Meanwhile, Gerald's face appeared on every major news channel as the lead suspect in a multi-state criminal conspiracy. But still, he remained at large, until 3 weeks later, when everything came to a head. Lena and Malik received an anonymous tip. A rental cabin, rural Nevada, coordinates, no sender name. Federal agents hesitated to pursue without further verification. But Lena wasn't waiting. She and Malik flew there themselves, flanked by 2 private security men she trusted with her life. What they found was not what they expected. The cabin was real, remote, hidden. But what lay inside it was even more shocking. Not Gerald, not weapons, not even evidence. A man, emaciated, alive. It was Travis Bell. He had been kept off the grid, drugged intermittently, moved from location to location. He wasn't the only one. He spoke slowly, but what he said confirmed everything. Gerald had worked for a shell company that trafficked stolen tech innovations. They targeted vulnerable travelers, mainly young black men, offering opportunities or manipulating them into compromising situations, then wiping them from the system. He'd escaped weeks ago when a new handler panicked and left a door unlocked. He had been hiding, waiting, terrified of going to the authorities. When Lena showed him the footage, the press clippings, the chaos his name had caused, Travis broke down. But he agreed to testify. That testimony became the hammer. Arrests followed in 6 states. Multiple executives were implicated. Gerald was found 3 days later at a private airstrip, preparing to flee the country under an alias. He was arrested at gunpoint and immediately entered federal custody. His arrest didn't end the storm, it only began it. The FBI raided contractors, shut down shell companies, and launched a national task force. Lawsuits rolled in from families who had long been ignored. Malik was asked to speak before Congress. Lena, once a quiet power player behind closed doors, now stood in front of cameras, a firebrand voice for justice, aviation reform, and racial accountability. But the most staggering moment came 6 months later. In a packed courtroom with reporters lining every wall, Gerald was finally brought to trial. He tried to plead out, but the judge refused. One by one, survivors took the stand. Travis, Simone's brother, now recovered. 2 others. Their testimonies painted a picture not just of corruption, but of a silent machine that ran beneath America's airports, where racism was not just a symptom, but a tool of profit. When Lena finally spoke in court, she didn't read a statement. She didn't need to. She stared at Gerald and said, "You thought you could erase them. You thought people would look away. You thought no one would come for them, but we did. We always will." The courtroom erupted. And just like that, Gerald was sentenced to life without parole. Lena and Malik didn't celebrate. They didn't post victory photos. They didn't do press tours. Instead, they set up a foundation in the names of the missing and returned. One designed to protect black innovators, secure their patents, and ensure what happened at Gate 36B would never happen again. But even as the courtroom emptied and headlines declared victory, Lena knew something still haunted the edges. One file remained unaccounted for. A 6th name, a 6th man. No footage, no family contact. Only a blank face in a closed report. His name was never spoken again. But Lena kept that file in her desk drawer, waiting. Just in case Gerald wasn't the only one. And just in case the machine ever tried to start back up. The skies belonged to her now, and this time, they would never fly under the radar again.